Setting my safe area. Notice I'm up off the edge, but not off the backing. Top left. And move across. I'm going to pull it down all the way, bottom right. Okay. Now I'm going to go across to my border sets. I'm going to pick my We're picking the heart, okay? I'm changing my placement to 1 point, and then I'm changing it to corner. So the node is up at the top left, okay? I'm going to go into my toolbox, marking tool. I'm going to outline my border, both sides. So I have a clear outline. Jog my needle down, okay, slightly, and add. Okay, I'm going to come back up to my placements. Now I am going to pick my design, and I have it picked, sorry. Moving my machine to the top left corner, tapping on the node. It's almost the exact size I need it. Notice how it's up just slightly. I'm going to pull it down just slightly. Keep pulling it down till I hit it, and that's about right. Now if I needed to size it, I could come over here to my size. I could make it bigger or smaller. I'm doing it smaller and bigger. So these you can size to the size that you want it to. I'm going to place it again, and I'm going to call it good. Sorry, I can keep playing with it. Okay, now I can sew out that corner. Oh no, I closed my buttons, sorry. All right, tap on quilt. And then sew. So one thing I want to point out, if I wanted to give it a little bit of a margin, I would have taken my ruler and my pencil and marked in, and then I would have sized it. That will allow you to sew your binding on without sewing over your border. Design. I'm going to cut my thread. And what we're going to do, because I already have it, with tap on finish. Tap on the 45 twice, tap, tap. Now we're going to move over here, place. I'm going to jog my needle down and place the design, and then kind of come slightly in. There we go. And sew it out. And now this time I can tap on quilt. And I can go into my toolbox, move to start point. It'll get me in the vicinity. I'm not going to use pull bobbin. I'm going to use my single stitch right here. Take my threads, pull it through, and then tap on sew. I'm cut my threads. Now we're gonna get ready to fill in this space here. Couple things that we need to know. We're gonna keep my outline drawing. So when we go from this screen, I'm going to exit out. I'm going to go into pantograph. So in the pantograph mode, there are a couple measurements that I need. Now you could use your ruler, but we're going to use the ruler in the pantograph screen. Just want to get my pencil here so I can write them down. Okay. So I'm going to use the ruler to measure how tall this heart is so that I can keep it consistent all the way around my quilt. Really important measurement. And then I'm going to measure the distance between the 2 points, okay? The start and the stop, or the stop and the start, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jog my needle down, jog, so you get it as close as you can without it dragging. And I'm going to move it to the uppermost point of my design. See how it rounds up and it goes. And so I'm going to tap on the left side of the ruler, and then I'm going to move it to the bottommost point, tap on the right side. Now, there's a ruler that's the only ruler in here that will give you the height or the depth, and it's this angled one right here. So you're going to write down that measurement. So I'm just going to write it right here. It's 3.824. Okay, now I can measure my distance. So I can come right here, tap on the left side, and then I can move all the way over and tap on the right side, and that's my other measurement. So now I have my height and my width, and that's 30.362. 30.62. Okay. Now I have my 2 measurements. I can get out of this screen, and now I can apply these measurements. Now I'm going to use easy mode, because easy mode likes to keep the aspect ratio or the integrity of the size and height of the design. So I'm just going to keep it in easy. That's the one I picked, and I'm going to go and apply my measurements. So for my total width, that's the largest number. That was 30.362. I'm going to tap on OK. So now it's changed that shape. Now I'm going to go put in my total height. Because it's only one row, I want my total height to be that one number and not increase or decrease it at all. So I'm going to put in 3.824. Almost 4 inches, okay? So there's my measurement, and now I can go and select my design, my heart border, open it up. It's giving me one big heart because it's telling me that it's centered. I just want to kind of unlock that aspect ratio, and there are my hearts. Now, I'm going to place it as a single pattern so I can get back into my screen. I'm not going to use 4-point placement. I'm going to go up and use 2-point stretch. Place that. You'll notice that I still have my marks from my marking tool right here. Go all the way across, right here. Place that. See how it pulled it down? It's slightly up right there. I'm just going to go with it because those are my start and stop points. I'm going to move it back over here. I'm going to pull up my threads. There's so many ways that you guys can pull up your threads and start. I know where the start point's supposed to be. So we'll tap on quilt. And sew it out. I'll let it do its thing. I'm not even going to touch it, you guys. When you start playing around cutting threads, you mess up the design and how it's going to sew out. Okay, you guys, we're done. A little overlap right there. But it shrinks a little bit as it's sewing, so try to be careful and make sure that it's right on. And then I'm going to use my single stitch, cut my threads, okay, because it did its tie off. Now, Really important for you to know and understand. I'm going to quilt my center section, go roll it up, get down to the bottom, quilt my bottom border, then I'm going to turn my quilt and quilt my sides. It'll make it much easier and a better experience if you can turn your quilt.
All right. Thank you for that, Karla. So that is Borders and Corners for Plus version and Pro without gold. Now I get the pleasure of showing you Borders and Corners, the gold with the gold access. All right, so the gold feature borders and corners. I love borders and corners. I will add a border onto a quilt just so I can use this feature. I love it so much. Then I'm going to go into borders and corners. In my video, I didn't talk a whole lot about this first screen, so I'm going to do that now. This is kind of the home screen for borders and corners. Up here, we have the red toolbox, and there's a reset all. If you're doing 2 borders, say you have 2 or 3 borders on your quilt, after you do one, you will want to come in and hit the reset all button. That just resets everything for you so you don't have problems the next time you're going to place your next border. Also, there is a set safe area. If you haven't given yourself enough room and you're placing your points for your border, it will give you an invalid placement. So you might need to reset it and make sure. Just make sure when you set your safe area the first time that you give yourself ample space. Then we also have a ruler in here, and then we have stats. Now the stats is kind of cool. So you can save this, and when you get to the bottom, you know what patterns you use and the size that it is. This is really helpful. You know, as we quilt, our quilts are shrinking. When we get to the bottom, it might not give you in the autofill enough patterns. You might want to add a pattern, and I'll show you that when I get to that. If you're still on version 5 and you have a Windows 11 tablet, when you go into stats, this is going to be blank. Windows 11 changed up the notepad. So it's been fixed, but it's been fixed in version 6, not in version 5 yet, in version 5. And it will come up, and then I can just push on to notepad, and then you can save it from there. So this has a lot of good information for you. Also on the top toolbar, we have our zoom, and then we have selected border. Now the select border is not your patterns. It's not what you're going to use in your corners or your border. It is what you have saved. If I click on it, I have nothing in here because I haven't saved any borders. And this is the save button when you save it. I like to use this select borders when I have, when I know it's going to take a while to get to the bottom of the quilt. It's going to take me a few days or whatnot. I always think, oh, I'll remember. I never do. I always forget. And if I saved my border, then I can go in here and know what pattern I used. There's been many times where I've had to unroll to see which one I did where. And the reason for that is I choose several patterns. I have a backup pattern just in case I go to use another pattern. I don't like the look. It's not speaking to me. We were talking about this earlier, how you put the quilt on the frame and the quilt will speak to you. Sometimes I'll put a pattern up and it just doesn't seem right. So I choose backup patterns. So this is very handy for when you get to the bottom and you haven't remembered what you're going to do. These are our placement nodes. You move your machine to the top left and then tap on the node, and that will bring it in and out depending on where you're sewing machines. when you're doing borders and corners, the program doesn't like it if the lines start to get all twisted and stuff. So there is a proper order to place your border, and you'll go outside from the top, and then you'll go down to the bottom and do the outside, and then you'll do your inside border, and then the bottom part of your inside border. And then when you get to the right side, you want to go outside and then inside. So if you remember outside, inside, you won't have any problems of the lines twisting and then throwing an air at you, which would be invalid. So you could get the invalid for two things: your safe area not large enough, or it could be invalid because you're not going in a correct order and you're twisting the lines, which the program doesn't like. We have border styles, and then we have, this is our top, and then I can click on to do the bottom. We also have vertical locks, and then a lock widths. I do want to show you, for the ones that have hoop frame mode, you do not use these placement buttons. So I'm going to show you real quick for the hoop frame people. So you will go to set dimensions, and then you'll set your outer dimensions. So I'm going to set it at 60. And then you would put in your width. Say my border is 3 inches. And then this is what it looks like for hoop frame mode customers. And then you would, I'm going to go ahead and get my patterns. I'll go ahead and just do the duck. And so all. And now you'll have different placement buttons, and these are the ones that we use. If I go into Zone Manager, you're going to see I need to move it one time to do the border. For the hoop frame users, I would highly recommend, this is really, really important, that you measure your quilt before you put it on the frame. Because if you're off an inch, or if you're off a half inch, one of the ducks are going to get squished, and we don't like squished ducks. So this is your placement for the hoop frame people. I would like to, I'm going to go back to board. I'll just keep this one up. I would like to talk about patterns. There are directional patterns, and you want to make sure that when you get to the bottom that you have the correct direction. What is really cool, if I'm doing these ducks and I'm going to the bottom, I would bring up either my saved border, or I would bring these ducks up before I switch it to the bottom. And why that is important is when I go to switch it to the bottom, it's going to put the ducks correctly. If I was to say I was to leave the program and come back in, and now I'm at the bottom border of my quilt, it's been a couple days, I'm at my bottom border, and I go get the ducks again, I'll show you why it's really important that you make sure a directional pattern, you open it first and then choose to the bottom. Now see how my ducks aren't in a row. They're not, well, they're kissing in this corner right here. And if it's like this, then you would want to flip your pattern. I'm not going to show all of borders and corners because I don't have enough time today, but I do want to show you when you're at the bottom and your corners need to be flipped. Go to number 4 where it says flip patterns, and I'm just going to select my left corner and then my right corner. And now I have them correct. I'm going to go back up here and go top. Number 2, we have margins. You can add, or you can unlock the margins so you can do a different outer border than you do an inner border. Then we have get patterns. Remember, the get patterns are here, not up at the top. I've seen several times where people say they don't have any patterns. Well, this is what you've saved on the top, and here are where the patterns are. I'm going to select another pattern. I want to show you the ones that I did on my quilt. This pattern I used, and it doesn't look like a directional pattern, but it is. Look how this ends on this side, and the swirl comes around the swirls and end here, and then on the right side it's different. So when I was to do my border, I brought in my patterns first, and then I flipped it to the border so that it would be correctly. So when you do your sides, they will match up correctly. We do have one version. It's version 6. It's a version 6, and it's 65. If you have that version and you bring in your pattern and you go to the bottom, it will not flip correctly. It will not flip those corners correctly. So there is a bug in that one. If you have 65, I'd recommend to update to 81 so you don't see that. Number 2 here, margins. We also have our left edges and right edges, and I'll show you that later when we've flipped our quilt on how to do our edges. I also want to talk about, let's go back to patterns. Let me get rid of this one. There are patterns out there that you can purchase that are long. They're longer than normal. And now I don't have enough safe area to do this pattern because I'm going out at the bottom. So be careful of that. The people with the 21 machines, no problem. The smaller machines, you need to be careful with these because you might have the room to quilt it out at the top, but once you get to the bottom, you most likely won't have the room on that. So be careful of these patterns. That's why I say I always have a backup, because if I put it on and I don't like it, then I'll have another one to choose from. Here is another one that is long on one side and then short on the other. This would be a directional pattern also, that you want to make sure when you get to the bottom that your corners are correct, or your sides, when you get to your sides, they will not match up. So really important to look at your patterns and make sure that it's going to work for your setup and your machine. So we're going to go into borders and corners. I'm going to set my safe area. And like I said, give yourself plenty of room. Like you saw Karla in hers. She went off her quilt top and gave herself plenty of room. And then I'm going to place my pattern. I'm going to do the top left and then hit the corresponding placement button. And then I'm going to move my machine down. Then I'm going to go to the corner and then use the corresponding placement button. And then I'll move it down. And sorry, you won't see the bottom. This is what got cut off on the program screen. And then I'm going to go to the right side and so I'm doing outside, inside. So remember, outside, inside. So I'm going to do the outside first, because that will stretch out my lines versus making them crisscross. The program doesn't like crisscross applesauce. So, and then I'll do my inner border. And down. One thing about borders and corners, it's really important to stay consistent on your thing. So first I'm gonna go to number 2. I'm gonna unlock it, and then I'm gonna give myself margins. I always give myself a larger outer margin on my outer border. Then I'm gonna go choose my pattern. And then the border pattern, the corresponding border pattern. See, I don't have my quilt on the frame. It looked pretty straight, but you can tell with the program that it wasn't straight. I'm going to do select all. And anytime I do borders and corners, I always do fabric comp. Always, always. I'm going to just start moving the machine and add in points. This is just like the marking tool, the fabric comp and pattern clips. You move your machine, you stop, and you add, and you hit the plus sign to add a point. And these fabric comps awesome if you have if you have a little wave in your border, which mine are never perfect. And when I flip them, my quilt to be on the side, a lot of times I either have a smiley face or a frowny face in the center, and fabric comp will compensate for that. And I'm just going to add my points. And it's really important when from the top to the sides to the bottom that you do everything the same. If you add a margin, add your margin when you get to the bottom and onto the side, and the same with your margins and your fabric comp. You want to do everything the same for all of your borders. So as you're doing the fabric comp, you'll see the dark green line. That's your active line, and that's where you'll add your line. And then there's a next button to get to your next line. And then I'm good. And now I'm going to tap on pull bobbin. I use the pull bobbin feature in the program at the start, and then at the end, I always just manually do it myself. Several reasons why I do the pull bobbin at the start is one, I can check my bobbin thread to make sure it's coming up smoothly. So I make it, and then two, because I have to test the software. So I would probably, a lot of times I'll just hit sew, and then when it does its first tie-offs, I swipe my thread. I do that a lot too, but I do need to use it to test it to make sure. So, and then it's off and running. Okay, so I have a pause in this video. So I need to show you the bottom border. Unfortunately, my SD card and my camera got full, and when I went to the bottom, I stuck another card in, and then that card failed. So I lost all of my bottom border video. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to do my bottom border, but I'm going to go ahead and add my pattern first. Especially if just in case it's a directional pattern, I don't have to, it's kind of a habit I got into, so I don't have to worry about that directional pattern. And then I'm going to flip it to the bottom, and then see the buttons, the placement buttons are upside down for your bottom border, and it's just the same technique, outside and then inside. And then right side, outside. Just remember, outside, inside. Then it'll keep yourself out of trouble when it comes to these lines. So it's pretty much the same. I will go in and do my same margin. So I would unlock my lock because this is my outer border. And I like to do the 1/2 inch so my binding doesn't cover my my design. And when I'm doing an inner border, and then I usually, my inner border is usually really small, but if I'm doing a border in my second border, I'll usually leave the lock on and then just put it at the margin that I like. And then also you'll be doing the fabric comp on top of that. So then you would hit sew all. So pretty much the same as the top, but just add your patterns first. Add them first before you switch it to the bottom. Then you won't have to worry about a directional problem. When in patterns, you also see there is an autofill. If your quilt has shrunk and the program didn't like, look at my circles, they're just a little bit smaller than my corner pattern. So I might turn off the autofill and see what two patterns do. Two patterns look a little better to me on the bottom than my squished ones. So you do have that, and that is another good reason for the stats to see how many the top border was. And then I would sew this out. So let me go back to my video and we are going to sorry, I don't. So now I've flipped my quilt and let me pause this. If you have multiple, say you went to the bottom, say you flipped your quilt and you have multiple patterns, start from the inner one and move out. Always go from in to out if you have multiple patterns. And you've seen me hit the reset button, and because I had just done one of the inner ones. So now I'm going to do my outer inner one. So I am going to put the lock. Oh, 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 my video go. Okay, sorry. I'm not sure what happened to my video. It's still running, but it's not showing. There you go. So, let me see if I can not mess this up again. Yep, I messed it up again. So I'm hoping for this toolbar to drop. Right here, there is a vertical lock. I like putting this vertical lock on here because this part has already been sewn on my quilt. So I don't need to worry about placing the bottom placements. I just do the top left and then the inner left and then the top right and that. So that's why I put the lock on, so the lines would just go down. Okay, there you go. So there's my placement. And I'm placing the corner even on where it has stitched. I did my right side and now I'm going to go do, yep, even though I had that clamp in the way, I'm going to move it. And I'm not going to be worried too much about it. I just want the program to know where my corner is. And then once I've placed my corners, I'm going to go to number 2, and there is custom borders, left and right. Since I'm on the right side, I'm going to move my machine to where it started stitching, and then I'm going to tap the right edge and see how a red line was added to the program. And then I'm going to move it to the left side where the pattern ended and choose that. And I'll go ahead and choose my border pattern. I don't need my corner patterns up. I just chose my border and then I went ahead and select all. And now I'm going to do my fabric comp. Like I said before, do your fabric comp just like you did the one before, but you only need to do the top and the bottom of this one. And then I'm going to use endpoint adjust. This is pretty awesome. This will help you get right spot on when it starts and when it ends. So I'm going to tap the orange little button and the machine will move. You can also hit next on the bottom of the screen and the machine will move to where you think it is. And then you can use your adjustment arrows to get it spot on. And then I'm going to go ahead and tap the 2 on the right hand side. And then the machine looks like I'm making some adjustments here first. Yep, I want to get it spot on. And then when it's done, I'm going to tap the 2 on the right hand side and then the machine's going to travel to the right hand side. Now, since because of fabric shrinkage, I don't put mine spot on because by time you get across, especially if it's a really dense pattern, oh shoot, my video doesn't go to my right side. I leave a couple stitches to the left, so by the time it gets there, it has shrunk up a little bit to get it spot on. Something that you'll have to play with, and you can trace it to see if it will be spot on. And then I'm just gonna, after that, I'm gonna hit OK, and then I'm going to sew this corner. And I will also take my quilt off and flip it to do the other side if you would like. You can roll it and do your bottom, and then you're just doing the bottom, but just the bottom border type. So it'll be the same, but the bottom part. I like to take my quilt off and flip it again. And I tried to get a shot on how spot on I was on that one. And then you can see my other inner borders that I did. I wanted to show you all 3 of them sewing, but I just knew I was not going to have enough time to do that. And then that's borders and corners gold features. Just remember to always use your fabric comp when you do a border because your placements are just one straight line. Use fabric comp. Love it. Fabrics comp's awesome.
This is coming from Karla's video, but Karla pushed a button that went from the stretch chart to the right number of cards in one row. Can you show us what that button was?
So in easy mode, it's this center button right here that she clicked on to get it to stretch out. So she selected a pattern. Let's see, we did the hearts. And depending on your measurements, what the size it comes in at. Hers came in as one big pattern because of the size she had chosen, and then she just hit center, which will, and mine came in just fine, so I didn't really need to do the stretch.
Okay, so Marie, does the select border keep the settings as well as the pattern?
So the question is, select borders. It will, if you have a margin, it will keep your margin. It will keep you everything you have set up. And then when you bring it back in, it will be the same.
Okay. So what are the locked verticals and lock border width? What exactly does it do and why would you use it?
When I do my side borders, I already have a pattern in the corners. And when I'm placing my border, I'll put my vertical locks on, and what it does is the line down here, wherever I move my machine, and use this placement, my line just goes straight. Now, if I had it unlocked and I brought my machine in and did my placement, see how the line doesn't go straight. So that's all the vertical lock does, is it takes your line down straight when you use the placement. And then the border width, if I've used this before, especially on quilts that I don't have a designated border, like a whole cloth quilt, I can lock the width and I can change my number. And now this is 3 inches. So that's what those two do. Next.
Okay. So here's a question. You kind of touched on it, but if you can get a little bit more clarification, do you always start quilting with the borders? What is the order of operations when you're doing a quilt with borders?
You don't have to. You can sew the center of your quilt first and then you work your way out. If you're working your way out, you'll want to do the inner borders first and then work your way out to the outer borders. I personally start at the top with the first border, and then I do, if I have any other borders, do them, and then I do the center, and then I go to the bottom and I'll do the inner border first and then the outer border. And the same if I flip my quilt. If I have a couple of borders, I'll do the inner one first and then I'll do the outer one. It helps that you don't how do I say this? You don't want to mess up your backing if you go from in to out. If you're on the bottom and you have quilted in the center of your quilt, and then if you go out the outer border, you have a chance of getting some wrinkles in your backing if you do those a little differently. If you do out and then in, so that makes sense.
Thank you.
Hope that answered your question.
It was very helpful. We had a couple of questions on that. You answered both of them. So how do you place the nodes when you don't have a corner?
If I have a quarter, I would just move your machine where you want it to stitch and use your placement things. But this is where you would want to put your lock on. So you only really have to do, if I have my border lock on, I can place this one and then this one. So I really only did 2 of them. I only placed this one and my outside one.
Okay, thank you. So with Plus, why are my corners not the same size after I place them?
In Plus mode, it depends on your placement method, how you're placing it. Karla used 1 point and you can size it. If you use 1 point corner, you can size the pattern to the size you want it. But if you're using a 4 point placement, it's always going to be where you've moved your machine to size it. So maybe that's why it's a little off, because it was you using 4 point. Go to 1 point corner and change your sizing. That way, when you flip it to the other side, it will keep the same size.
So if you have questions or if you just want to talk to Jana or her team, they are absolutely wonderful. Here's our number, 801-485-6688. It's on our website if you didn't catch that. They're happy to answer all your questions and help you get the right products. Technical support as well. We love helping you with your, as quilters, we like to try new things and back ourselves into corners, and tech is amazing at helping you get out of those corners. If you have questions for Karla, she is also fantastic to work with. So she loves your questions. Just send her an email directly and she can help you with that. Watch us again tomorrow on YouTube. Watch your emails. You will get the YouTube link for this. When you're on there, please help our YouTube channel grow. So like, subscribe, comment, share, all the fun things. Just help us get the word out on YouTube. But thank you all. Have a great night. I apologize we ran over by 2 minutes, but I hope it was worth it. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone. Have a great
Bye.
evening.
Thanks for joining us.